Hello everyone and welcome to the Microsoft licensing update for the month of May 2022. This is a little bit later than you might have expected from us. That is due to the very fact that I was having and enjoying a well-deserved holiday. I was off for 2 weeks and getting back up to speed as of today, Monday the 9th of May. And the first thing I definitely wanted to do is share my thoughts around the current um, yeah, pricing and licensing of Microsoft. So without further ado, I want to dive in, go through the product terms and the summary of changes as you are used to from me. And the first item on the list is Microsoft 365. So they added Microsoft 365 Business Premium as an eligible prerequisite for remote help. And you can see that here, if you scroll down, Business Premium is available, is a prerequisite for the remote help feature that was added. And what you see here as well is Microsoft Defender for Business. And they have added a clause that you may not provision more than 300 user subscription licenses per per tenant. That is so if you have a organization that's larger than 300 users, you cannot add more than 300 Microsoft Defender for Business and should potentially look into the enterprise solution for Microsoft Defender. Second term, I won't show it on the screen, but they added Azure. I will show it. It's Microsoft Azure. They added terms for Azure DevOps on to the service-specific terms, and updated Azure Maps terms covering use of imagery, data, and copyrights, and removed the IoT suites from availability tables. Now, this page is becoming quite large, but you can see here the IoT suite has been removed. All references to it in other tables and clauses have been removed as well. And if you scroll all the way to the next section, then you will see that they added a clause around a clause around imagery data. Azure Maps uses imagery data from Microsoft Bing and Airbus. Use of imagery content is subject to the following. Bing imagery is subject to the Bing map notice in the notices section. Airbus imagery, which is the new addition to this, is prohibited for customers from the following countries. That is probably has to do with regulations. And for regions where access to Airbus imagery is restricted, Azure Maps will leverage imagery from other sources. Customers may not use any means to subvert the restrictions listed above and gain access to imagery content. And around copyright, customers may not remove, obscure, mask, or change any logo and or copyright notice placed on or automatically generated by Azure Maps. And the addition here is customers using the Azure Maps Render v2 API must use the get map attribution service to obtain the copyright attribution text. Now, finally, there is an addition around Azure DevOps, which you will find all the way at the bottom. Azure DevOps used for development and testing. You can only access and use Azure DevOps to develop and test customer applications. Only one licensed user may access a virtual machine provided by Azure DevOps at any time. So that means if you have multiple users that need to access the same environment, they need their Azure DevOps license. So for instance, within MSDN, you will get Azure DevOps licenses free of charge, which you could use to license all your MSDN users accordingly. Authorized developer is a term customer appoints Microsoft as its authorized developer with respect to Apple software included in Azure DevOps. Microsoft is responsible for complying with the terms for any such software included in Azure DevOps and will keep confidential any confidential information of Apple accessed as part of Azure DevOps. Well, that's a nice addition from Microsoft that they will adhere to comply with the terms that Apple states. And third-party repository service address. If customer grants Microsoft access to its third-party repository service accounts, customer authorizes Microsoft to scan the accounts, including the contents of customers' public and private repositories. So Microsoft does access your content, but only your repository service accounts. If we continue on to Dynamics 365, they've updated the Sales Navigator clause, and the Sales Navigator clause you will see it down here. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, they have changed the online services terms to product terms, because all the online services terms are now covered by the product terms. The LinkedIn privacy policy is mentioned, and the LinkedIn corporation is the data processor, and the customer is the data controller. So you control the data, and LinkedIn corporation will process the data. And they will comply to the terms of the LinkedIn data processing agreement located at this new website. So when you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, or when you use Microsoft Relationship Sales, which includes LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you are signing up to adhere to this clause right here. And as such, also the data processing agreement of LinkedIn, not the data processing agreement of Microsoft, because this has not been included in that yet, but the data processing agreement of LinkedIn. Privacy and security terms. They added Azure Firewall to the Microsoft Azure Core Services table. I won't show that because, well, you can imagine that it's there. Program agreement supplemental terms. So what they've done here is add a lot of clauses around the Microsoft customer agreement. And what they added is the online services renewal for Microsoft customer agreement. This basically states that auto renewal will be turned on automatically. So when you sign up to licenses in the Microsoft customer agreement, so within CSP, for instance, standard, you will have the auto renewal feature turned on, which means that Microsoft is willing and able to renew your subscriptions automatically when your term expires, be it a monthly term, an annual term, or for Dynamics, even a 3-year term. If you don't want this, you need to opt out, and you need to do this 30 days before the subscription expires. Otherwise, Microsoft will reserve the rights to continue the subscription for you, and as such, send you the invoice. Cancellation policy. The cancellation policy for the Microsoft customer agreement used to be 72 hours. They updated it to 7 days. So if you sign up to new subscriptions, you can cancel these within 7 days of the subscription start date to be eligible for a prorated credit or refund for unused time calculated on a daily basis. No credits or refunds will be issued for such subscription canceled after 7 days. So within 7 days of starting a new subscription, you are able to cancel it and get a refund for the days that you are not going to use it anymore. So you will be invoiced for the days that you might have used it. And if you do this afterwards, you won't get a refund and your subscriptions will be canceled, but you won't get your money back. Then there's something about coterminosity for the Microsoft customer agreement, which is a mouthful, but it allows a customer to align the end date or anniversary date for multi-year subscriptions of a new subscription to an existing subscription. Coterminous subscription must all belong to the same customer. Coterminated end dates can be applied to monthly, annual, and 3-year term subscriptions. However, new annual and 3-year term subscriptions may not be coterminous with an existing monthly subscription. So what this says is, if you, for instance, sign up to an annual commitment for a certain license, M365 E3, for instance, and 3 months down the line, you have an additional use for M365 E3 for new users within your organization, or you decide to buy an add-on for services like, I don't know, Defender for Office 365 or something like that, you have the option to align it to the same end date as the original M365 E3 subscription. It's very convenient, because otherwise, if you start adding things later, also signing up for an annual term, that means that you might have subscriptions that don't run alongside each other and don't have the same end date, which makes it more difficult for your manageability in your organization. So what you can do is align it to the end date of the original subscription that you bought first. But what Microsoft states here as well, you do need to do that for the same term. So you cannot align an annual subscription to a monthly term license, for instance. As well, coterminosity may not be applied to third-party Azure or trial subscriptions. The coterminosity option does not apply when adding a seat to a current subscription, upgrading a seat to a new or existing subscription midterm, adjustments of subscription durations, or adjustment of subscription end dates after coterminosity is turned on. If we look to SQL Server, there is a new addition to the terms and conditions here, which is the distributed availability groups use limitations for standard edition. Customer may use distributed availability groups on SQL Server Standard Edition to establish database replication with Azure resources only. Again, with Azure resources only. April 11th, there was already an update in the interim for the universal terms for online services, because the online service cancellation policy had to be updated. Certain subscriptions must be canceled within, it used to read 72 hours, as I explained earlier, but it has been updated to 7 days. And that's it for the product terms. One final note that I wanted to run through with you all is the Software Assurance 24/7 Problem Resolution Support benefit that is retiring. So this was already posted April 8th, but this is the first moment we've had to discuss this with you. At Microsoft, customers come first. We created software assurance to provide access to new versions of software products at no additional cost to committed customers, along with additional benefits for deploying and managing Microsoft products. We've added and removed additional benefits over the years to keep up with the IT needs and trends. In 2019, we announced changes coming to the Software Assurance 24/7 Problem Resolution Support benefit, and we have an update on the revised plan for those changes. The original plan was to retire the entire benefit and replace it with as-needed support. Based on the current benefit usage and feedback from customer, they will instead fully retire 24/7 problem resolution support for all customers effective February 1st, 2023. So next year, start of next year. As our support offering adapt to increasing cloud adaptation and digital transformation, unified support has become the predominant way customers are covering their Microsoft portfolios. Because unified support offers a comprehensive and flexible foundation, this is the best way for Microsoft to meet customers' support needs. With the enterprise support contract, you have one contract to meet all your support needs, including cloud services not covered by software assurance benefits. What this means to you, for you, new software assurance resolution support incident won't be allocated starting February 1st. Your current software assurance 24/7 problem resolution support incidents can be used or transferred to a Microsoft support contract before Feb 1st, 2023. So my thoughts on this is that this is a bit of a mean thing that Microsoft is doing, because the way that the Premier support and unified support used to work is that the Microsoft services account teams would check the amount of 24/7 problem resolution support hours that you had through software assurance and use those hours to reduce the cost of your unified support contract. And what Microsoft is now saying is we will retire the entire benefit in its entirety, and we will force you to include this in your unified support contract if you have one. Well, you used to include it anyway, but get reduced pricing because you had these support hours. Microsoft removing these support hours will mean that your unified support price that you are or not yet used to will increase, because this cannot be used to reduce the cost of the unified support contract. That being said, we will be doing Microsoft Services support session again, and we will discuss this in great detail, because we immediately noticed that Microsoft is pushing very high, very big unified support contracts with all the clients that we have in our portfolio. And that basically what customers usually need is like fire safety, somewhat as support from Microsoft in case there is a severe incident that needs to be handled on the end of Microsoft. All other support is usually offered by third-party partners that they have. And as such, what we've been doing is just not renewing unified support or bare minimum value in the unified support contract. But more on this in the future. I did want to notice, did want everyone to notice this. So be aware that the 24/7 problem resolution support benefit is retiring as of February 1st, 2023. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this session. And as always, we will talk soon. Bye.